at a university. As a consequence, I meet people who are utterly fascinated with certain ideas and technologies and start out their day not having any customer in mind at all. They're just utterly fascinated with what they work on. But most people that we encounter actually have a clear idea what they want to do and why they think a customer needs them to invent what they're trying to invent. In this module, what we're going to look at is how do we get very, very sure that we got that right. It's easy to get it right on a macro level. It's much harder to get it right in detail. And it turns out there is a huge difference between knowing that a need exists and knowing how to create a business that can successfully bring the solution to that customer in a way they want it and it makes you money. Why is that true? Well, there's a few reasons. Customers tend to not buy things that are near misses. Now, I do want to make a point about that, because if you're working on brand new technology, things the market doesn't even begin to understand, and you know and have a vision for transforming a whole industry, it's very likely that you can't get that exactly right from the beginning. And there are customers out there called innovators and early adopters who will see what you're doing and they'll figure out how to turn it into what they need. Those people are extremely valuable to you, and you got to find them. But most of your journey is not going to be just serving the people who figure it out for themselves. And the rest of the marketplace is going to tell you that you've got to get it right before they're going to buy it. So we have to get it right. Secondly, there's a problem that many entrepreneurs I've worked with don't figure out without some help and going and talking to folks. And that is, where the pain is felt in the customer world isn't necessarily where the decisions are made to buy your product. Money isn't always connected to the pain. That's a problem, because we need both ability to respond to the pain and the pain itself to motivate a customer. The other thing that's easy to miss in this process is how many barriers there are to people fixing what they say is wrong. Call them barriers to adoption. We have to understand the customer's world well enough to know how to anticipate those, help people get around them. But even if we have all that right, there's another issue that we've got to figure out so we don't miss it and have one of those near misses, and that is that our message about this solution has to show up at the right time, at the right place, and in the language of the customer, or even if it's all true, they aren't going to buy it and your business isn't going to happen. So we've developed a tool that really helps people dig into this in their level of detail and the level of persistence that's required to get beyond the superficial answers and really know what they're talking about. You got to invent a graph. I can't even tell you how to draw it. It's going to be different for your world and your opportunity than it is for mine. Let's look at that graph together for a minute. On the left axis, we have to come up with our own invention of what the customer's pain really is, and we have to use the customer's words. Can you imagine any other way besides talking to customers to figure that out? Just wondered. I haven't figured any other way. We've got to talk to enough customers to really understand their world, understand how they describe the pain they're in because you haven't shown up yet. And then we need to invent a quantitative axis and start plotting the customers we've talked to from on a scale of 1 to 10 on how much pain they're in. It's going to vary by what their situation is, what segment they're in, what they're trying to do. Got to define an axis. You get to invent that, but you invent it based on conversation you have with the customer. But now we got to get at this motivation, readiness to spend money side. So we're going to cheat a little bit and put two concepts together to get our 1 to 10 axis here. The first one is measuring how directly the pain is felt by the decision makers. So we need to rate the potential customers we could try to serve on that axis. So on a 1 to 5 basis, how directly is that pain felt by the person who's got the ability to make the decision and spend money on your solution? Every customer we talk to, we got to get to the bottom of that issue. The second half of this 1 to 10 equation is how difficult it is for that decision maker to go ahead and spend the money. If you're selling $3.5 million pieces of lab equipment, that's probably going to be a lot more difficult than if you're selling a $50 app for somebody's iPad. When we add those two together, that's going to give us another axis, and we'll be able to graph all of our customer data from on that X and Y axis. Now, how do we plot the points? The size of the circle we plot for each point, and you can use what's called a bubble graph. You can find it in Excel and probably in other graphing programs, but you make the size of the bubble proportional to how much money it would be worth to you if that customer said yes. So the two axes are about the customer's characteristics. The size of the bubble is about the size of the opportunity for you. You can see how this would help you shape your prioritization of that set of customers and who would you go after first. And that's the whole point. But I'm a little greedy on data. So I'm going to push you to add a fourth dimension. And to do that, we're going to use color. Because not all those customers are created equal in terms of my ability to get access to them. If I happen to work for a company that has customers already, well then access might be because they're an existing customer, or they know about our brand, or you're in the same trade organization, you see that customer regularly. So even if we just break it into hot, warm, and cold, a red, yellow, green environment can add one more level of meaning to our graph. And this graph, when you know it is based on what customers have told you, and you've done the homework to figure out how much value those customers will bring to you, and thought about how hard it's going to be or how easy it's going to be for you to actually make that sale because of the level of relationship, you have a very dense, crisp picture that will help you define your prioritization for going after this set of customers. And that's what you need. Doing that is new ground for most of you. So I want to tell you a little bit about how to go build the data that it's going to take to do that well. Think of it like filling a file cabinet, because you're going to need lots of data about every customer, not just for this exercise, but for everything else we're going to do. You have to do your homework first before you go embarrass yourself with the actual potential customer. The way you do that is what researchers call secondary research. Go find out what you can find that's already in print, already on the web. And you use that to form your hypotheses about the pain the customer's in, about their readiness to spend money. Everything that you're trying to get a clear answer on, you make a hypothesis, support it with data that you can find. Then when you go talk to them, you can test that hypothesis. And you find out whether it's true. They'll probably help you reshape it when you actually have that conversation. But that's the dance you're going to do. Do good homework, form a hypothesis, go test the hypothesis. Change your hypothesis. Do it again. While you're there talking about their needs and understanding their pain, there's a couple other things I want you to make sure you ask. And find out where it is that customer looks and who they trust when they are trying to make purchasing decisions about the type of things you hope to sell them. It's going to become very, very important to you in the future sections. And so, as always, gather all that data and keep replotting, and replotting. That graph will change many times as you go through this. But it will be that guideline that you need to prioritize your approach to the market. Now, when we come back, we are going to start translating all of that information into a very definitive dollars and cents value proposition that, again, you're going to test with the customers.